I am Levita Morgan Battle, a member of St. Paul United Methodist Church. I've been a member of St. Paul United Methodist Church for over 25 years. I presently chair the St. Paul History Project. In many ways, the history of St. Paul is the history of the city of Birmingham and this nation.
St. Paul is directly where it is, why it is, when it began, because of this fellow here, Arid Lakin. Arid Lakin was a Methodist minister, originally from New York, but during the war, during the Civil War that is, he came south as part of Sherman's march as a chaplain. After the war ended, immediately after the war ended in October, thereabouts of '65, the Bishop of Cincinnati sent him to Alabama to reestablish the National Methodist Episcopal Church South. Here's 69, for example. Huntsville District, A.S. Lakin, our man here, is the PE presiding elder. And you have Tully, he was a big name and all that. Montgomery District, Talladega District, Elyton District, that is Birmingham, or would be Birmingham in 1871.
The founder of Methodism, John Wesley, was known as an outspoken opponent of slavery and denounced it as evil. The Methodist Episcopal Church held to his view. However, the Southern Methodist Church broke away from the Methodist Church.
Members of the National Church believed that now that the cause of the secession of the Southern Methodists from the MEC was over, that there was no reason to have two denominations and they would just go back together. Well, the Southerners didn't quite see it that way. So in 1867, Lakin and several others met together over at Talladega College and established the Alabama Conference of the Methodist Episcopal Church.
St. Paul was founded for newly freed slaves 1 year before the city of Birmingham was incorporated. It stands historically in the divide between the white Southern principles of segregation and black freedom.
In 1876, the General Conference of the Methodist Episcopal Church allowed conferences to be split on racial grounds, and that was the origins of the Central Alabama Conference. Interestingly enough, though, Franklin, the fellow who apparently started St. Paul, and Lakin, when the split came, they went with the black Central Alabama Conference instead of staying with the all-white Alabama Conference. In 1867, as I said, he established the Alabama Conference of the MEC. The very next year, he was elected, believe it or not, president of the University of Alabama. And on August the 28th of that year, he came to Tuscaloosa to take over, literally to take the keys of the university. And he got to the university and went up there, and Professor Wyman says, no, you can't have the keys. And so he turned around, and 4 days later in the Tuscaloosa Independent Monitor, the newspaper, which was run by the head of the Klan, appeared this political cartoon showing Lakin here, his colleague Noah Cloud, who was superintendent of education and had gotten Lakin elected president. And then this stands for the Klan, of course. And there, the caption says, this is what's going to happen when the Democrats get back in power, that this time Republicans were in power, and the Republicans were very much in favor of black voting and suffrage. This election that was about to take place in November of '68 was the first time that black men would be voting in a national election. This political cartoon is, to this day, the most notorious cartoon to come out of the Reconstruction era. You will find it in every American textbook, showing exactly what was going on with the Klan.
Me is that this is the person
our man right here, Lakin.
St. Paul United Methodist Church, and
he started the conference, and that led directly to St. Paul's founding. So St. Paul, politics, it's all mixed in together from the get-go.
So civil rights and St. Paul
yes.
intersected at its very
At the very beginning. At the very beginning, and continued on.
In 1888, the St. Paul congregation moved to its first location in Birmingham, very near where the Steiner Bank building is located. The second church building was at 6th Avenue and between 23rd and 24th Street. Then a third piece of property was purchased on 8th Avenue, but switched out for its present location at the corner of 6th Avenue and 15th Street.
I have been a member here at St. Paul since birth in the early years. We always enjoyed the Bible school because we had plenty to eat and a fellowship with other kids.
My parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents were members of St. Paul, so this is more or less a Jones church, I guess.
I was baptized in this church over 70 years ago when I was 3 months old. And St. Paul was a great influence on me because of the ministers that we had during the time that I was growing up. I was baptized under Reverend Gibson, who was the father-in-law of Reverend Lowry, who came some years later. When I was a little girl, Dr. Charles McPherson organized a clinic here upstairs.
It was a free clinic, which meant it gave poor children, they didn't have to pay for their shots.
Back then, at 6 years old, you couldn't attend school unless you had to be vaccinated. And he would come down on Saturdays and examine us and vaccinate us here at the church.
I have been attending St. Paul since I was born. And I grew up here. In fact, we started in the basement.
Well, St. Paul is interesting. You know, St. Paul stayed in the basement 100 years. And not really 100, but almost.
Right.
And my wife's father, Harry B. Gibson Sr., went there and he put the top on the church. And he passed away, and the church still wasn't finished on the inside. And in my pastorate, I completed the inside, the interior.
And I remember the day we had the dedication. Everybody got in line and walked upstairs. Also, we've had a community developer here at this church. And we needed a community developer in order to have a place for teenagers and children to go in the summer. They would go different places in the city to learn about Birmingham. So it was really a really nice church that had a lot of people and a lot of children, and we did a lot of activities. So it was a wonderful church.
We have members of this church who remember coming to church in a horse and buggy. We have members who remember the fact that the NAACP in its early days held its meetings here in this church.
I became active in the civil rights movement after my dad used to stay out at night. And I was wondering, well, what is he doing? I was just sitting there listening to him when he came home early one night, and he was talking about, he was at St. Paul United Methodist Church where they started the civil rights movement.
Just regular meetings to discuss plans for the movement. Most of them were held at 16th Street.
Yeah.
And the marches emanated from 16th Street in 1957.
Okay.
And I was in Mobile.
Right.
And I used to drive from Mobile to Montgomery. In fact, Martin and Ralph and Fred Shuttlesworth and I used to meet monthly to talk about the movement. We met in Montgomery because Montgomery was in the center of the state. I would drive from Montgomery, from Mobile to Montgomery in 4 hours.
Yeah.
I'd leave home at about 6 or 7 o'clock and get there at 10, 11 o'clock, time for the meeting. Fred would come from Birmingham 2 hours and get there in time for the meeting. Martin and Ralph would come from in Montgomery and get there an hour late.
He said that Martin Luther King and all of them were strategizing as to how they were going to bring about a change in the city of Birmingham for blacks.
Because we held all the meetings here. The NAACP held all the meetings here. The reason I know this, because I opened up the church for them all the time to hold the meetings here.
This was actually St. Paul was the first church to have a meeting here. And our pastor was Reverend O.R. Fenoy. And when they approached him about having a meeting here, of course, he wanted to have it. And it was meetings here and at 16th Street also.
We have members who were present the day the 16th Street Church was bombed.
It was horrific. I mean, it was like nothing to hear a bomb going off anywhere. But the most horrific was when we were here attending church, which we thought would never happen.
I've been a member of St. Paul United Methodist Church for 56 years. And so I was here on the morning that the bombing occurred at 16th Street Baptist Church. I was 5 years old at the time and I was in Sunday school.
My children, Micah and Tara, were in Sunday school the Sunday that 16th Street Church was bombed. I heard it on the radio.
When the bomb went off, we were downstairs in the basement, and I do remember the building shaking violently. You know, it's about, it's being 5 years old, it's about as much as I remember.
I jumped in my car and came up here. Tears were rolling down my eyes and everything, because I thought they had been hurt. But my uncle, he heard the news too, but he had a car, so he came and picked him up.
The debris falling all inside the building in the basement where we had our Sunday school lessons, and we had to crawl out. There were members who would come in and get us out one by one. The fear that we would be injured by the Klansmen who were, they thought was still at 16th Street.
So that changed our lives quite a bit in that how can a person be so cruel as to bomb a church? We thought this was our safest place.
Yes.
We knew after all of the marches, nothing changed as far as segregation is concerned or integration until they died.
Yep.
Some girls had to die before anything happened.
The unspeakable trauma and tragedy of the 16th Street bombing shook this city and was experienced personally by people here at St. Paul. But out of the rubble of that bombing came national legislation for equal opportunity and civil rights in America. One of our own at St. Paul was honored, Mr. Henry Lewis, for his faithfulness in making sure that the doors have continued to be open at St. Paul for meetings on civil rights. For 145 years, St. Paul has continued to make its mark on history. The long life of this church is a testament to what open hearts and open minds can do to open the doors to create a more inclusive society here in the Civil Rights District in Birmingham.